Now, continuing our focus in West Asia, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on his fourth visit to West Asia since the Israel-Hamas war began. The top US diplomat has meetings lined up with various leaders of the region. Shortly after touchdown in Saudi Arabia, Blinken met with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman before heading to Israel. The visit comes in the backdrop of rising tensions in the region. Blinken has warned that without joint peace efforts, the war could escalate and spread across the region. The Secretary of State was earlier in Qatar and Jordan, and as part of the 5-day diplomatic visit, the US Secretary of State will also be visiting the West Bank and Egypt later this week. Blinken has cautioned that Israel needs to check civilian casualties in Gaza. He has also asserted that Palestinians must be allowed to return to the Strip and not be forced to leave their homes. Blinken's remarks come in the wake of statements made by some Israeli right-wing lawmakers who said that Palestinians must be encouraged to leave and Jewish settlements re-established in the besieged Strip. Now, Qatari officials are said to have discussed the release of the remaining hostages with the US Secretary of State, and these negotiations come in the wake of an earlier impasse in the negotiations. The Qatari Prime Minister had claimed that it was brought about by the recent killing of a top Hamas leader. But in the backdrop of diplomacy, the question of providing adequate aid to Gaza remains a point of contention. US senators have flagged off administrative concerns over aid not reaching Gaza in a timely manner after a reported visit to the Rafah border. 2 US senators revealed that a long process of Israeli inspection and rejection of goods is delaying aid for millions of Gazans starving. For weeks now, US has been mounting pressure on Israel to allow a greater amount of food and medical supplies into Gaza. Israel had previously opened up the Kerem Shalom border for more trucks to pass through. However, the recent inspection tells a different story, as a long line of trucks remains stuck outside the border opening. Israeli officials have refuted these allegations, saying that United Nations is responsible for aid distribution in the war-torn enclave, and that the smooth passage of trucks into Gaza is primarily the humanitarian organization's responsibility. Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis. He's joining us live from Virginia. He's a military expert and the host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Right now, as things stand in West Asia, how probable do you think is that the Israel-Gaza conflict will spill over and become a regional issue?
Well, it's certainly my biggest concern, and has been from the outset, and nothing that's happened in the last week or so has done anything to minimize that. In fact, if anything, it's escalated because of the assassination by Israel of the Hamas figure in Beirut, by the assassination of an Iran-backed person in Baghdad by the United States, this terror attack that happened in Iran a few days back there, but it could have been by ISIS, and then, of course, by the attacks in the Red Sea, and those attacks continue on there. All of these things make it look like that make it true that this thing is already on the verge of going, getting into a bigger war. And now then you have many of the Israeli senior officials implying that they may go on the offensive into Lebanon. Not that the Hezbollah may attack from the north, but that the Israel, if they don't get what they want and clear a path back on the Lebanese side of the border, they may attack. All of those things are antithetical to regional peace and to U.S. national security interests.
Right. Mr. Davis, you're a military expert yourself, so bring in your expertise here. We have been reporting on what's been happening on the ground in terms of military and the fighting, but there's also shuttle diplomacy happening, given the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in West Asia for the 4th time since the war started. So could you bridge the gap between the military that's happening, the military presence that's happening, and the diplomacy? How much of it has actually been successful?
Well, it's muted, I think, at best from the United States. And many of these trips by Blinken and several other U.S. senior officials, National Security Advisor, Secretary of Defense, have not really gotten that much success. Our influence in the region seems to be diminishing. And in fact, I believe no small part of that is because we keep making public statements that we're asking Israel to do certain things, but then you don't see it manifest on the ground. So when other partners in the region and other people see the United States not having influence with its ally in there and not being able to bring Tel Aviv, basically to heel and to say, make these things do it, then they're less likely to want to do something on the other side. And you see the result as almost no change, either politically, diplomatically, or militarily.
All right, Mr. Davis, thank you so much for speaking with us here on WION and getting us all your insights.
Thank you.